Chapter 41:15. The first is more. Well, actually awakened 2 talents at the same time? Jian Wushuang was shocked inside. When he made the 5th volume of Life Supernatural Power and his own innate advantage was further developed, he awakened his own natural supernatural power, but what he didn't expect was that he even awakened 2 natural supernatural powers at the same time. The 2 kinds of talents are life deterrence and divine power breakdown. Jian Wushuang got all the information of these 2 talents as soon as possible. Life deterrence is based on its own level of life, causing momentary oppression and deterrence to life below itself, and putting opponents into a short period of deterrence. This talent is supernatural. Jian Wushuang is not unfamiliar. When he was still weak at the beginning, he received the decisive spell taught by his master Xuani. The decisive spell can also make use of his own innate advantages, and at the same time, it can cause life-level deterrence to the opponent, but the effect is more general, that's it. But now that this talent is awakened, no matter who he meets in the future, as long as the other person's life level is not as good as himself, even if he is a superpower, he will be instantly deterred by life, but the effect intensity is different. This move can undoubtedly become his killer in the future. As for the second natural power, supernatural power decomposition, it is a natural life supernatural power, which is also very good. I actually awakened the 2 talents at the same time, and I was previously recognized by the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe also gave me a gift of the primitive universe. That is to say, I now have 3 talents at the same time. Sword Wushuang's inner shock. A gifted miracle alone cannot be awakened by ordinary people or ordinary life. Under normal circumstances, life above the level of good fortune will develop 70% to 80% of the innate advantage to have a certain chance to awaken talents, but this chance is not high. And even if the awakening talent is supernatural, it is only 1. He is now like a sword warrior, awakening 2 talented supernatural powers at the same time, coupled with the original laws of the universe. He has 3 talented supernatural powers at hand. This is a freak. Although I don't know what is going on, but the more awakened by talent, the better it is for me. Jian Wushuang also had a surprise in his heart, followed him to close his eyes again. Stuck in him, his divine body, his divine power, still transforming. Life is outside the Nirvana pool, on the vast open ground. Bloodwave Supreme is still waiting there silently, and has not left. Xuani Supreme stepped out of the Nirvana pool of life and came to the side of Xuanbo Supreme. What's wrong? Xuebo asked. Monster, Supreme Bloodwave, the little guy you called Jian Wushuang is a monster, sighed. Oh. Xuebo frowned. How do you say? He stayed in the Nirvana pool of life for a long time, and his innate advantage has been developed to more than 70%. It has ushered in the opportunity for the god's body to skyrocket. As a result, the boy suddenly skyrocketed his god's body to nearly 70,000 miles. All of a sudden, the remaining 1/4 of the source of life before the nirvana of life was consumed, not to mention, even the source of life that I just put in consumed more than half of it instantly. That is, this kid at the moment when the body of God was soaring, it absorbed an almost complete source of life, which was incredible. Yi shook. Almost 70,000 miles of body. Absorbed a complete source of life. Xie Bo's eyes lit up. Haha, it seems that this little guy has gained a lot in the nirvana pool of life, nearly 70,000 miles. A tall body, alas, is a lot bigger than that Yangshan. No, I don't know if he has the awakening talent. If he awakens the talent again, then his gain will be really great together. This is pure luck, after all, even if he is the perfect level of life, he has also developed his innate advantages to more than 70%, but it is still difficult to say whether he can awaken talents. Xuebo smiled. The awakening of God's natural powers is indeed pure luck. If you are lucky, you will be able to awaken. If you are unlucky, even if you develop your innate advantage to 90%, it is useless. Of course, if you can perfectly develop your own innate advantages, you will certainly be able to awaken talents. Wait for this little guy to come out of the nirvana of life, we will know if he asks. Xuebo smiled slightly and continued to wait here. After a while, more than half a month passed. In the nirvana pool of life, the transformation of many people's bodies and divine power has stopped, and they have all come out of the nirvana pool of life. In these more than half a month, these special lives entering the nirvana pool of life have more or less gained a lot, and their innate advantages have generally been developed to more than 60%. After all, for those with lower levels of life, the innate advantage is easier to develop. The life magical power cooperates with the nirvana pool of life, and can casually develop its own innate advantage to 60% to 70%, even if it is developed to 1989 Chengdu. It is a pity that although a few of these people have developed their innate advantages to 80% or even 90%, but because their own life level is too low, they have not ushered in the opportunity for the surge of the deities, nor have they awakened the talents. As for the few creatures who entered the nirvana pool of life this time, only one person was lucky. He developed his own innate advantage to 70%, and also ushered in the opportunity for the divine body to soar. Unfortunately, the divine body is only soared to 300 feet high and stopped. The 33-foot-tall body is already quite huge compared to ordinary practitioners, but compared with the bodies at levels such as Jian Wushuang and Yang Shan, it is a small point, and he does not have the awakening talent. It was 5 days later, almost all of the special lives that entered Nirvana pool this time have come out. The only one that has not come out is Jian Wushuang. There is only that little one left. Supreme said. After all, that little guy is the perfect level of life, and it is normal for the body to degenerate for a long time, but everyone else has already come out of the nirvana pool of life, and by reason, his body degeneration has also ended. Shuebwa said. Wait a second. Wait a moment. After another 3 days, the space channel in front finally moved. Woohoo! A beam of light flickered, and Jian Wushuang stepped out of the space channel. Okay. After walking out of the space passage, Jian Wushuang immediately saw the crowd in the open space in front of him. Not only does it have blood waves, 1 or 2 supreme existences, but also the many special lives who entered the nirvana pool of life with him are also quietly waiting here. The fastest version of the mobile version update URL. Chapter 41:16. 2 more arrived today. These people, when they were in the nirvana pool of life, all saw the sword Wushuang deity soared to a height of nearly 70,000 miles, and they were shocked inside. Originally, they could leave directly after coming out of the nirvana pool of life, but none of them left and chose to wait here, just to see how much benefit Jian Zhenshuang, the perfect life, had in the nirvana pool of life. Jian Wushuang, come here. Bloodwave Supreme Zhao Zhenshuang beckoned. Predecessor Shuebwa, Zunyi Supreme. Jian Wushuang stepped forward immediately, respectfully saluting. I heard you say that you have gained a lot in the nirvana pool of life, but on the body of God, it has skyrocketed to 70,000 miles. Bloodwave Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang. Less than 70,000 miles, only about 68,000 miles, Jian Wushuang replied. That's also great. Xie Buoshuan smiled, but followed him solemnly and asked, Little guy, I ask you, have you awakened the gift of magic in the nirvana of life? Next to the Supreme Master, also looked forward to Jian Wushuang with some expectations. As for those special lives around them, they all stared at them. When he heard the Supreme inquiry, Jian Wushuang did not answer, but smiled slightly, and blinked at the same time. Bloodwave Supreme knew immediately. Ha ha! Supreme Xiebo laughed. There was a smile on the face of the next Supreme Master. Sure enough, even the gifted supernatural powers have been awakened, which is really enviable. Bloodwave Supreme and Ji Supreme only know that Jian Wushuang has awakened one of his talents, but subconsciously thinks that Jian Wushuang has awakened one of his talents, but in fact Jian Wushuang has awakened 2 talents at the same time. Of course, this Blood Bow Extreme did not ask. Jian Wushuang would not take the initiative to say. The divine body has skyrocketed to 68,000 years, and the talented supernatural powers have also been awakened. The only remaining problem now is the specific development of your innate advantage and the change in the strength of your own divine power. Bloodwave Supreme said. Divine strength changes? Jian Wushuang looked. Under normal circumstances, a special life, with the development of its own innate advantages, the strength of divine power will also be greatly improved. This improvement is related to the level of life and the degree of innate advantages of development, such as the general initial life. Once they develop their innate advantages to the extreme, their divine strength will be about 100 times that of ordinary practitioners. Bloodwave Supreme said. 100 times? Jian Wushuang moved inside. Divine strength is 100 times stronger than ordinary practitioners. Take an ordinary master. For an ordinary practitioner, the divine strength is naturally the ordinary master strength, but the special life at the same level, but the strength of the divine strength is 100 times that of the normal master. Is this just initial life? What about higher cosmic, fortune level life? Jian Wushuang asked. If the development of the innate advantage of the universe level life is extreme, the strength of the divine power can reach 500 times that of ordinary practitioners, and the development of the innate advantage of the creature level life is extreme, and the strength of the divine power is about 2,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. Bloody Supreme Road. 2,000 times? Jian Wushuang stunned. This is the creation level life, and the perfect level life that is above the creation level life is that the entire universe is rare. Such a life is extremely difficult to form, and its innate advantage is much greater than the creation level life. Normal conditions under the perfect life, if they develop their innate advantages to the extreme, the strength of their divine power can reach 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioner. Bloodwave Supreme said. Jian Wushuang was a little dreadful. 10,000 times? What is this concept? Of course, as a perfect life, it is too difficult to develop your own innate advantages. It is difficult to achieve the strength of natural divine power to reach 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioners, but even if you only use your own innate advantages develop 60% to 70%, the strength of the divine power is also 6,000 times or 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners, which is still very high. You guys, you ushered in the opportunity for the soaring of the gods in that nirvana pool, and you can awaken talents. Then your innate advantage has been developed at least 70%, and maybe even more than that, but we have developed a few percent. Will you have to make a judgment based on your current strength? How to test the strength of this divine power? Jian Wushuang asked. This is simple. In my palace of life, there is a place to test the strength of the divine power. You can accurately check how many times your strength is the same level practitioner. I will take you there. Jian Wushuang nodded. Come with me. Bloodwave Supreme took Jian Wushuang directly to the side of the void. As for the Supreme Master Yi, he did not keep up, but looked around the people. Shen said, well, this is the end of this baptism of life, you all go back. Having said that, Yi Supreme turned and left. On the open ground, those who came out of the nirvana pool of life looked at each other, each one looking quite complex. The one named Jian Wushuang is obviously the perfect life, not only ushered in the skyrocketing divine body, but also awakened the magical powers of the gods. It's really good luck. Indeed, this luck is a bit better. Just such a huge divine body is enough to overcome the sky. In addition, he has awakened the talented supernatural power. This sword is unparalleled, and the real potential is infinite. His innate advantage has also been developed at least 70%, which means that his strength of the divine power is at least 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. Since then, he has been in the universe, the advantage is too great. If one day he can break through the Supreme, that breakthrough is estimated to be the top level. The people present secretly groaned. This time the baptism of life let them fully understand the Jian Wushuang against the sky. At the same time they also understand how great the potential of Jian Wushuang in the future. Such a monster has made them completely unhappy about any attempt to compete. Unless they can break through the Supreme in the future, they are destined to look up. And while Bloodwave Supreme took the sword unparalleled to perform the divine power test, in the 6th mountain range, in the exquisite loft group. Master, the news of the life nirvana pool has come. The old man in black stood respectfully in front of the white-haired boy. What happened? The white-haired boy asked casually. That sword Wushuang has at least developed 70% of the innate advantage in nirvana pool of life, and his body has skyrocketed to a height of 68,000 miles. In addition, he has also awakened his talents. Road. Chapter 41:17. The first is more. The originally very casual white-haired boy, when he heard the words of the old man in black, changed his look immediately. 68,000 miles into the god's body? How is that possible? The gray-haired boy looked incredible. You know, it is also the perfect life. When he first entered the nirvana pool of life, he also ushered in the opportunity for the gods to soar. At that time, his gods soared to the height of 9,000 miles, which is shocking enough. After all, the 6,000-mile-long giant body of Yangshan Mountain alone has envied countless practitioners and even special lives. And his 9,000 miles high body, purely in volume, has even exceeded Yangshan. Such a body is already very scary. But the 9,000-mile high body is totally different from the 68-mile high body. How is it possible? How could that sword Wushuang have such an incredible body? The white-haired boy was shocked inside. Although it's incredible, the process by which Jian Wushuang's body soared in the nirvana of life was seen by many people and could not be faked. His body really did have a height of 68,000 miles, and he still at the same time, he awakened his own supernatural powers, which made him optimistic about his Bloodwave supremacy and favored him even more. Now Bloodwave Supreme has personally taken this sword Wushuang to test the strength of the divine power. The master and you have performed the divine power test before, and the result is 7,600 times that of a normal practitioner. The performance of nirvana in the life, his innate advantage may be developed even more. If even the strength of the sword is higher than the master you, then the sword Wushuang completely surpasses the master in terms of basic potential. Then the position of the master in the temple of life will also be great. Decline. Inu solemnly said. Hearing the words of a slave, the white-haired boy's complexion was completely darkened. He is the perfect life in the entire universe, and has grown all the way from the beginning of cultivation. He is talented and dazzling. When he broke through and became the master of the rules, he was introduced to the Palace of Life, and after he arrived at the Palace of Life, he has also received the attention and expectations of many senior executives. As he walked along the road, he was too dazzling and too smooth, which led to his arrogant and even a little arrogant. There are countless special lives in the Temple of Life, and not many of them are in his eyes. However, perhaps because he grew up so smoothly, after he reached the ultimate domination, he encountered his biggest single bottleneck. He approached various methods at the ultimate dominating level and made every effort. His strength has been promoted to the extreme that he can achieve, but the result has been unable to break through to reach the supreme. Not only himself, but also the Life Shrine has made great efforts for his breakthrough. Various resources and various treasures were given to him free of charge. Even the Life Shrine gave the two the perfect life that has already broken through to become the supreme has personally come to point him in the hope that he can break through and become the supreme as soon as possible. However, countless resources and treasures piled up, but he still showed no signs of breaking through. Until now, dozens of times of chaos have passed, he is still the ultimate dominator, and can't see any hope of breakthrough. Because of this, the senior members of the Life Shrine have basically no hope of his breakthrough, and the Supremes who had paid so much attention to him had already been disappointed in him. And his status in the Temple of Life has long been worse than before. However, before that, after all, he was still the only perfect life in the level of the Holy Palace of Life. Even if the chance of breaking the Supreme is slim in the future, only with such a chance, his status will not go low. In recent years, the white-haired boy has made little progress in strength, but the resources he deserves have never been less in the Temple of Life. In the original situation, although the white-haired teenager was very unwilling, he was still reluctant to accept it. But now, with the arrival of Jian Wushuang, everything is different. In the previous level of the Life Shrine level, he is a perfect life, just punch this, and his treatment will not be bad. But now Jian Wushuang, the perfect life at the dominating level, is no longer the only white-haired boy, and many high-level eyes of the Palace of Life have been completely attracted by Jian Wushuang. This also made the white-haired teenager feel a huge crisis in his heart. I am in the Temple of Life, and I have not been treated by those high-ranking powerhouses. Now there is a sword unparalleled. If those high-level officials in the Temple of Life think that the potential of this sword is unparalleled, they will do their utmost to cultivate this sword unparalleled, and let alone fight for more resources. I am afraid that even the treatment that originally belonged to me will be omitted. The white-haired teenager clenched his hands, his eyes were extremely cold. The 68,000-mile-high body has awakened its own talented supernatural power. If the strength of the gods exceeds him, the sword Wushuang completely surpasses him on various foundations. Those who live in the Palace of Life will definitely not focus their energy on this perfect life, where they can hardly see the hope of breaking through, but will focus all their attention on Jian Wushuang. At that time, he would never be treated like this in the Temple of Life. I am afraid that it would be at most similar to the treatment of a creature of good quality. These are unacceptable to the white-haired boy. Anyway, I can't let the things that belong to me be lost. Jian Wushuang, you new kid, want to impact my status and treatment, dream. I will prove to those old things. I want to let them know that the sword is unparalleled but a little guy. I am the most hopeful person in the Palace of Life to become the next supreme perfect life. The white-haired boy's eyes are full of strong man's ye slave. Go, let's go to him. The white-haired boy took the old man in black and slaved directly to the place where Jian Wushuang tested the strength of the divine power. Jian Wushuang has come to a temple under the personal leadership of Bloodwave Supreme. The interior of this temple is actually a huge independent space, and the entire independent space is a martial arts field. There are also a variety of instruments used for cultivation on the martial arts field. In one corner of the performance martial arts field, there is a special law formation here. Within the law formation, there is a respected battle standing there. Bloodwave Supreme came with the sword unparalleled and came to this front. Chapter 41:18 Danger. The white-haired youth, who was originally very casual, immediately changed his expression when he heard the words of the black-robed elder Yenu 68,000 miles of divine body. How is this possible? The white-haired youth's face was filled with disbelief. One had to know that when he first entered the life nirvana pool, he also received the opportunity for his divine body to expand explosively. At that time, his divine body had expanded to a height of 9,000 miles. This was already terrifying enough. After all, Flame Mountain's huge divine body, which was 6,000 miles long, had already attracted the envy of countless cultivators and special beings. His 9,000-mile tall divine body was even bigger than Flame Mountain's, which was already very shocking. However, compared to his 68,000-mile tall divine body, his 9,000-mile tall divine body was completely different. How is this possible? How could Jian Wushuang have such an incredible divine body? The white-haired youth was extremely shocked. Although it's incredible, many people have witnessed the process of Jian Wushuang's divine body growing rapidly in the life nirvana pool. It can't be faked. His divine body is indeed 68,000 miles tall. Moreover, he has also awakened his own innate divine power. This has made Ruler Bloodwave, who had been optimistic about him, even more fond of him. Now, Ruler Bloodwave has personally brought Jian Wushuang to test the strength of his divine power. Ruler, the result of your divine power test was 7,600 times that of an ordinary cultivator. It's very heaven-defying. However, based on Jian Wushuang's performance in the life nirvana pool, it's possible that his innate advantage will be further developed. If Jian Wushuang's divine power is stronger than yours, then Jian Wushuang's basic potential will completely surpass yours. In the future, Ruler's position in the Life Palace will also be greatly reduced, Yi Nu said solemnly. Hearing Yi Nu's words, the white-haired youth's face turned completely gloomy. He was a perfect life form that was rare in the entire universe. He had grown up from the beginning of cultivation and was extremely talented and dazzling. As soon as he broke through to become a principal ruler, he was taken to the Life Palace. After he arrived at the Life Palace, he was also valued and looked forward to by many higher-ups. He had been far too dazzling, and his journey had been far too smooth. This had caused him to feel incomparably arrogant and even a bit conceited. There were countless special life forms in the Life Palace, but not many of them were worthy of his attention. However, perhaps it was because his path of growth had been far too smooth that when he reached the level of an Omega ruler, he had encountered his greatest bottleneck. He had tried all sorts of methods to reach the Omega ruler level. He had tried everything he could, but he had been unable to break through to become an ruler. He was not the only one. The Life Palace had worked very hard to help him break through. They had given him all sorts of resources and treasures for free. In fact, the Life Palace had even sent the two perfect rulers over to give him some personal guidance, all in the hopes that he would break through to become a ruler as soon as possible. However, despite the countless resources and treasures he had accumulated, he still showed no signs of breaking through at all. Dozens of chaos cycles had passed, and he was still an Omega ruler. There was not even a hint of hope for him to make a breakthrough. Because of this, the higher-ups of the Life Palace no longer held much hope for him to make a breakthrough. The rulers who had been looking forward to his breakthrough had long since grown disappointed in him. His status within the Life Palace was no longer as high as it had been before. However, in the past, he had been the only perfect being amongst the rulers of the Life Palace. Even if his chances of breaking through to become a ruler in the future were slim, his status would not be any lower than before. Over the years, the white-haired youth's strength had not improved much, but the life-sacred palace had always given him the resources he deserved. The white-haired youth was unwilling to accept this situation, but he could still accept it. But now, with Jian Wushuang's arrival, everything was different. Previously, he was the only perfect life form in the ruler level of the life-sacred palace. For this reason, he was treated well. However, now that Jian Wushuang had arrived, the white-haired young man was no longer the only one. Many of the higher-ups of the Life Palace were completely attracted to Jian Wushuang. This made the white-haired young man feel a great crisis in his heart. I have already been disliked by the higher-ups in the Life Palace, and now Jian Wushuang has appeared. If the higher-ups of the Life Palace think that Jian Wushuang's potential is much greater than mine, they will do their best to cultivate Jian Wushuang. I'm afraid that even the treatment that originally belonged to me will be omitted, not to mention fighting for more resources. The white-haired young man clenched his hands, his eyes were extremely cold. His divine body was 68,000 miles tall, and he had awakened his own innate divine power. If his divine power was stronger than his, then Jian Wushuang would be above him in all aspects. The senior officials of the Life Palace would certainly not focus on him, a perfect life with little hope of making a breakthrough. Instead, they would focus all their attention on Jian Wushuang. At that time, he would never be treated like this in the Life Palace. At most, he would be treated like a creation-level life form, which was unacceptable to the white-haired young man. No matter what, I can't lose what belongs to me. Jian Wushuang, you're just a new kid. You want to challenge my status and treatment. Dream on. I'll prove it to those old guys. I'll let them know that Jian Wushuang is just a kid. I'm the one who has the best chance of becoming the next supreme-level perfect life form in the Life Palace. The white-haired young man's eyes shone with a fierce light. Yu, let's go and find him. The white-haired young man took Yu, the black-clothed elder, and flew directly toward the place where Jian Wushuang was testing his divine power. Jian Wushuang was led by ruler Bloodwave to a temple. The inside of the temple was actually a huge independent space. The entire independent space was a martial arts practice field, where there were all kinds of tools for cultivation. In one corner of the martial arts practice field, there was a special magic array with puppet fighters standing inside. Ruler Bloodwave brought Jian Wushuang to the magic array. Chapter 41:19. 13,500 times? How can that be? Even as a top-level Supreme Bloodwave Supreme, after seeing the scale value displayed on the spar in front of his eyes, he couldn't help setting off a huge wave. 13,500 times the basic divine power, which is totally impossible to the Bloodwave Supreme. We must know that even if it is perfect life and fully develops its own innate advantages, the strength of the divine power should only be about 10,000 times that of a normal practitioner. The strength of the divine power of the sword unparalleled obviously exceeds this level. Jian Wushuang, I ask you, when you just fought with those trenches in the French formation, did you really have no other means? Bloodwave Supreme staring at Jian Wushuang. I was in accordance with your orders from predecessors, and I fought against them with my own divine power. Jian Wushuangdao. Bloodwave Supreme nodded. In fact, he knew that if Jian Wushuang had performed some mysteries or other means to increase the strength of divine power in the circle, the test results would not be displayed on the spar. Now that the test results are revealed, it is the normal divine strength of Jian Wushuang. It is equivalent to 13,500 times the strength of the ordinary practitioners, and even the Supreme of Blood has never heard of it. It's impossible. Even if it is the ultimate development of perfect life, the strength of divine power should only be 10,000 times. Bloodwave Supreme frowned, but at this moment, he suddenly remembered that he had just arrived in the sword before Wushuang came to the Temple of Life, and the scene of life-level examination in that purple temple. At that level of life test, Jian Wushuang not only triggered the sky's red light, but after that, there was a burst of golden light. The golden light that suddenly lit up was so confusing to everyone that even the Supreme Master of Blood and the Great Axe didn't know what was going on. However, they did not delve into this issue, only when there was some change in the life test, but now after completing the divine strength test on Jian Wushuang, they can think of the golden light burst out during the previous life level test. The blood complexion immediately became dignified. During the life test, I have never heard of anyone testing a large area of golden light, and this test of the strength of the divine power has never heard of the strength of the divine power, which can reach more than 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. But both of them happened to the same person, don't they? With a hint of horror in Bloodwave Supreme's eyes, he had thought of a possibility. But this possibility made him feel creepy. The vast universe, recognized as the most upright life, is the perfect level of life. The birth of any perfect life is extremely difficult. Even the entire vast universe and an era may not be able to produce a perfect life. After a long period of time, perfect life is also recognized as the top of life. However, is perfect life really the ultimate in life in the universe? This question, if before, Bloodwave Supreme would definitely answer yes, but now, he dare not think so. After all, the sword in front of him, in his opinion, has completely exceeded the scope of perfect life. Perhaps Jian Wushuang is still just the perfect level of life, but it is definitely very different from the perfect life he encountered before. Jiang Wushuang. The Bloodwave respects the new look at Xiong Wushuang, but the look is quite dignified. You listen, what happened here today, including the specific strength of life you checked out, must not let anyone else know, including your wife. Try not to let her know, you understand? I see. Jian Wushuang nodded. He can see the solemnity of the Bleeding Wave Supreme, and he himself guesses that the entire vast universe has always been recognized, even if it is the perfect level of life, the development of his innate advantages to the extreme. The strength of the divine power is only one of the ordinary practitioners 10,000 times, but he has reached 13,500 times, which is obviously beyond the scope of perfect life. If this incident spreads out, he will not know how big a storm it will cause in the universe, but in the Temple of Life, there will definitely be a huge movement. Although he is valued by the Supreme of Blood and Supreme Axe, his strength is it's too weak. Once there is a big storm, he may not be able to hold it. By the way, Senior Shuebwa, there is one thing. Jian Wushuang said suddenly. What's the matter? Bloodwave Supreme looked over. Although my test of the strength of the divine power, although it has been verified to be 13,500 times, the strength of the divine power caused by the ultimate development of my innate advantage to the perfect life is stronger, but I still feel it. The development of its own innate advantages has not reached the extreme, or even a lot. Jian Wushuang Dao. What? Shui Bozan looked at Jian Wushuang in amazement. The strength of the divine power is 13,500 times, but Jian Wushuang's innate advantage has not been developed to the extreme. In other words, he still has the possibility to develop again, and the strength of the divine power may naturally increase again. Are you sure? Bloodwave Supreme asked solemnly. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. I can feel that there is still a lot of power hidden in my body, and there are 6 volumes of life magic. I only practice to the 5th volume. I feel that I just need to when the 6th volume is made, my innate advantage can be further developed. Of course, after the 6th volume is made, whether my own innate advantage has been developed to the extreme is not as clear to me. It seems that your level of life is really not as simple as the perfect life in general. He Xinghua sighed, his heart has already shaken a lot, but after all, he is a top superclass superpower, and soon he will calm down. You have already experienced the baptism of the nirvana pool of life. It is useless to go in for the second baptism, and if you want to continue to develop your innate advantage in the future, you only have the ability to make life magical. The sixth volume, or Some Precious Treasures of Life level, can only be hoped for further development. But no matter how your innate advantage is developed, I will only declare to the outside that you have developed your innate advantage to 80%, and the strength of the divine power is only about 8,000 times that of a normal practitioner. As for how to hide this secret in the future, it's up to you. Yes, said Bloodwave Supreme. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He knows that this incident is extraordinary, so he has also decided to fight against people from now on. If it is not a matter of life or death, he will only use about 8,000 times the power of ordinary practitioners. Chapter 41:20. The first is more. In fact, the power of 8,000 times that of ordinary practitioners is already terrible. Even for Jian Wushuang himself, he is the third-level master, and is equivalent to 8,000 times the basic divine power of ordinary practitioners. This allows him to surpass most of the fifth-level masters in divine strength instantly, and if he used the willpower given by the law of the universe again, the divine power would soar tenfold again. This makes the sword unparalleled divine power, which can be equivalent to the ultimate level of domination. A third-level master, but the divine power is comparable to the ultimate master. This is incredible. And if Jian Wushuang broke out in desperation, 13,000 times the base of divine power, plus the willpower given by the law of the universe, his divine power can even surpass the general ultimate master. It is estimated that there is only the ultimate master of the top level in terms of divine power. He can be stronger than him. 8,000 times the foundation of divine power is indeed sufficient. Jian Wushuang smiled. Your level of life is very special. As for the specific reason, I can't figure it out. If I have the opportunity to see the Lord Gong alone later, I will ask you for it. Xuebuo said. Master Gongzhu? Jian Wushuang looked, and he knew that Xuebuo was naturally the Gongzhu of the Palace of Life. The master of the palace created the life shrine in one hand, and let the life shrine dominate the depths of the universe for so many years, giving the universe many countless special lives a habitat, such as super-existence. Jian Wushuang is also extremely admirable. There is no doubt that the strength of this master of the palace is certainly shocking, enough to shock the vast universe. Master Gongzhu is a super-existence standing at the top of the entire universe. On the status, he can be on an equal footing with the super beings such as the Master of Daewu Temple and the Master of the Nine Emperor Pavilion. He knows a lot about special life, and maybe he will know why your divine strength has reached 13,500 times. Xuebuo said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. At this time, someone is here. Bloodwave's gaze was abrupt, and a big wave of his hand, the light and the scale value from the transparent spar in front of him disappeared instantly. Jian Wushuang looked up at the void ahead, where two figures were galloping. Two figures appeared one after another in front of Jian Wushuang and Xuanbo Supreme. Have seen Bloodwave Supreme. The white-haired young man headed by the face, humble salutes to Bloodwave Supreme. As for the black-haired old man behind the white-haired boy, he is also saluting and more respectful. 9 calamities. Bloodwave Supreme looked dull and glanced at the white-haired boy. Are you here? Is there anything wrong? Back to Supreme. I heard that a perfect life in the palace came against the sky. In the nirvana of life just now, the divine power soared to 68,000 miles. I felt a little incredible, so I came to know it. If I'm not mistaken, this one next to Bloodwave Supreme should be the sword unparalleled. The white-haired boy's gaze was already fixed on the sword unparalleled. Wu Zhenshuang also looked at the white-haired boy, their eyes staring at each other. The sword is calm without two sides, but it is dark inside. Simple eyes twitched, but he saw a hint of hostility deep in the eyes of the white-haired boy. Although this kind of hostility is hidden, Jian Wushuang still felt it. Obviously, the visitor is bad. Zhu Jie, are you really just coming to know Jian Wushuang? Bloodwave Supreme looked at the white-haired boy with interest, but then sneered, looking at this seat, you think that Jian Wushuang has too much potential big, too dazzling, it will cover your edge, worrying that his appearance will make you lose your precarious position and treatment in the palace, right? The smile on the face of the boy with white hair suddenly froze. He really did find it because Jian Wushuang made him feel a great sense of crisis, worried about his status and treatment. Although he thought so, he was still very humble and kind, but unexpectedly, Bloodwave Supreme broke the matter as soon as he opened his mouth. Status and treatment. Jian Wushuang frowned, wondering. At this time, Bloodwave Supreme chuckled. Jian Wushuang, the person in front of you is the king of 9 calamities. Before you, he was the only perfect life in the level in the Palace of Life. For a long time, my life shrine also gave him a lot of ideas for this, and it took a lot of resources and costs, but he has not yet been able to break through. In the life shrine, many high-level officials have already give up. The words of Zun's Weibo Supreme have not been completely spoken, but only by hearing this, Jian Wushuang has fully understood. The perfect life that has been almost abandoned by many high-level palaces of life. His status in the Life Palace is estimated to be much worse than before, and at this time my perfect life, which also dominates the level, appeared, and these 9 kings of nature naturally he would regard me as a threat, thinking that I would have a great impact on his current status and treatment, so he was hostile to me. Jian Wushuang knew it. To put it bluntly, it is the struggle between status and treatment. If he did not appear, even though the 9 kings could not break through the Supreme, but after all, it is the only perfect life in the Palace of Life, the status and treatment will not be worse. As soon as he appeared, the 9 kings are no longer the only one, and his status and treatment will naturally be greatly affected. The king of Zhoujiao will be hostile to him, it is also normal, but all this can't blame Jian Wushuang. To blame, he can only blame King Zhoujiao himself for not fighting and being unable to break the Supreme. Although the origin of the 9 kings of the calamity has been named by the Bloodwave Supreme, Jian Wushuang also has a heart like a mirror, but the king of the 9 waves also smiles on his face. Bloodwave Supreme has misunderstood, and a new perfect life is born in the Palace of Life. And the potential is still so great. I'm glad I haven't had enough time to worry about him. What are you doing now? Shuebo Supreme asked casually. I'm here just to get to know Jian Zhenshuang, and it's rare to see a perfect level of life, which happens to be the dominant level. If I have the opportunity, I naturally want to communicate with him at the trial ground. The king of Robber laughed. Trial field? Jian Wushuang doubted. Sure enough. Supreme Bloodwave was not surprised at all. He explained, the sword is unparalleled, the trial ground is a special space in the life shrine, and the practitioners in my life shrine are specially used to compete. The place where the fighting is different from the ordinary battlefield is that the 2 sides in the trial field are both simulated gods based on the battlefields themselves, so there is no need to worry about the damage of the body. Chapter 41-21. 2 more arrived today. Is that so? Jian Wushuang knew immediately. The 9 kings of the calamity said that they wanted to communicate with me in the trial ground. In fact, they wanted to fight me directly. As for his purpose, it is estimated to be like life, prove yourself at the top of the shrine. You're right. Bloodwave Supreme looked over. As far as I know, King 9 Calamities has not broken through to become a supreme in recent years, but with the accumulation of various precious resources and treasures, his progress is also very great. He has reached a very high level of understanding of the laws of the universe. If he judges by the sea of universally recognized laws, he should already have the strength to cross the 4th layer of the law. In addition, he is a perfect life, and his innate advantage has also been developed by 70%. The strength of the divine power is more than 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. All these add up to the fact that his strength is dominated by the sky. Although it is almost impossible to see someone in the universe who can rival the Supreme at the level of domination, but according to my estimation, if the 9 kings of the king really fight against everything, their combat power should not be weaker than those of the most ordinary Supreme. How much? Oh! Jian Wushuang frowned. Dominant level is comparable to Supreme. This is indeed incredible in the universe. Jian Wushuang had heard the Supreme Master said before that the Ultimate Master can be compared to the Supreme, and tens of thousands of Chaos Ages could barely meet one, which is definitely the most anti-genius in the universe. Wu Jianshou played against Supreme, knowing that the gap between Supreme and Ultimate Master is completely insurmountable, so he also very much agreed with the statement of Supreme Master. At that time, the Supreme Master also said that if he would become the Ultimate Master in the future, he hopes to be comparable to the Supreme. At that time, he himself felt incredible. But now, after coming to the Temple of Life, after the baptism of life, he didn't feel that way. After all, his current strength is 13,500 times that of a normal practitioner. Compared to the Ultimate Master, the Supreme Power is estimated to be about 10,000 times stronger than the Ultimate Master. I am afraid that it is less than 13,500 times. Once he breaks through and reaches the ultimate level, depending on his own level of life, his divine power is not inferior to anyone supreme. Only the divine power is not bad. Naturally, he can easily rival the Supreme. And the King of Nine Calamities is also a perfect life. Although the strength of the divine power is only 7,000 times that of a normal practitioner, he has already broken through and become the Ultimate Master, and the Temple of Life has spent so many resources and treasures on him. His divine power, of course, is extremely tyrannical, and it is not impossible to match the supremacy of the universe with his fourth-level cosmic law. The 9 kings of the 9 kings, because of you, feel that their status and treatment will be affected, so he can't wait to come to you to fight, just to defeat you, to prove himself, to tell the senior people in the palace, at least you now it's not as good as him. This can also temporarily maintain his position. With your potential, as long as you give enough time to surpass him, it should be easy. He knows that he may not be your opponent in the future. Fight with you. Bloodwave Supreme laughed. These 9 robbers are the ultimate masters, and their fighting power is enough to rival the Supreme. Come to fight with me. Jian Wushuang felt angry and funny. Whatever he said, he was only dominated by the 3rd grade. Even after his life was baptized and his strength was leaped, it would not be stupid to think that he could now compete with the 9 kings. Rest assured, since he came to you on your own initiative and said it was communication, it would not be possible to bully you. If you agreed to fight with him and wait in the trial ground, his cohesive body should only maintain the 3rd level the master's cultivation is. Bloodwave Supreme said. Oh, the same practice. Jian Wushuang looked. It's just the state of cultivation. As for other means, such as the perception of the laws of the universe, mysteries, and tricks, including the strength of your divine powers and talents, you can be fully exerted. Bloodwave Supreme laughed. That is to say, except the realm is the same as yours, nothing else has changed. Jian Wushuang, you can think about it and see if you want to play against him. If you do want to, you can directly refuse, he can't force you. Rejected. Jian Wushuang smiled. The 9 kings of the calamity have come to the door, and they obviously want to prove me. If I refuse at this time, do I not admit that I am better than him? Oh, so you plan to accept? Xie Bozan looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. And Jian Wushuang nodded slowly. Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme have been talking, and in the middle of the conversation, Bloodwave Supreme has shielded the surrounding time and space. Although the 9 kings of the king stood in front of Jianwu, they also know that Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme are talking but did not know what Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme said. He didn't bother to say anything, but waited calmly for Jian Wushuang to talk to Bloodwave Supreme. At last, Jian Wushuang looked up and looked at the King of Jujie again. King of 9 Calamities, are you looking for me, really just for communication? Jian Wushuang stared at King of 9 Calamities. Of course. Jujiawang smiled very mildly. Well, this battle, I took it, but I just finished my life baptism, and I'm not completely familiar with the changes of my body, so you have to give me a little time. So let us, after 10 days, you and I will fight again, how? Jian Wushuang smiled. No problem. King Jojia nodded. That's it, 10 days later I'm waiting for you in the testing room. I hope you don't let me wait more. Rest assured, 10 days later, I will definitely arrive at the trial ground. Jian Wushuang smiled. King Jujia's complexion was still dull, but there was an imperceptible flash of light in the depths of his eyes. He still respectfully saluted the supreme blood, and then turned and left. After King Jozai left, Jian Wushuang, just familiar with the changes of the divine body, it should not take 10 days so long. Bloodwave Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile. Sure enough, I can't hide the seniors, I really can't hide it. I still have some other gains in the nirvana of life this time. Jian Wushuang smiled. The other gains in his mouth were naturally the 2 great talents of his awakening. These 2 talents are supernatural. He hasn't studied it well, so it will take some time. In addition, since you have to fight with the 9 kings of calamity, you must know yourself and others, but I do not know anything about the 9 kings of calamity other than those you just told me. Jian Wushuang looked at Bloodwave Supreme. It's easy, I'll have someone send you the details of the 9 kings of calamity right away. Bloodwave Supreme said. Thank you Shuebwa Senior. Jian Wushuang was glad inside. Chapter 41-22. 10 days elapsed. In a loft in the 6th mountain, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a magnificent coercion exploded with him as the center, and then, he immediately closed his body. In 10 days, I was able to completely control my divine power. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. After the baptism of nirvana in life, not only his divine body skyrocketed by 68,000 miles, but his divine strength also skyrocketed. More than 13,000 times, even if it is him, in the face of this leaping power, it is a bit uncontrollable for the first time. Until now, it took him a full 10 days to perfectly control the strength of his divine power, suppressing it to about 8,000 times. The gain from this trip into nirvana of life is really too great, and my strength has increased too much compared to before. Jian Wushuang whispered to himself, and there was an irrepressible exclamation on his face. In these 10 days, not only did he completely control the skyrocketing power, but he also knew well about his 2 talents. He believes that with these 2 talents, even if facing the Supreme, he is somewhat self-protective. Of course, it just depends on talents to protect themselves. It's time to go on an appointment. There was a flash of coldness in Jian Wu's eyes. The king of Zhoujia wanted to step on him to prove his strength. In the middle of this, he was pregnant. He could use the hand of King Zhoujian to see how powerful he was after the baptism. To the point. The next moment, Jian Wu's figure flickered and disappeared into the attic instantly. Fu Jun outside the loft, cold as frost and Supreme Bloodwave were already waiting there. Shuang'er. Jian Wushuang glanced at his wife. After he returned 10 days ago, he had explained to Lung Rushuang his covenant with the 9 kings. But it's just a battle in the proving ground, not a battle of life and death. Naturally, the coldness will not worry. Predecessor of Bloodwave. Jian Wushuang salutes Bloodwave Supreme again. 10 days have come, how are you going? Shuebwa Supreme asked with a smile. Okay. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. You should read the data of the 9 kings of calamity, and be at war with him, can you be sure? He Xingbua asked again. The description of his strength in this material is almost before the 20 Chaos Ages, and in these 20 Chaos Eras, the 9 kings of the calamity have hardly ever shot, and his strength is within these 20 Chaos Eras. How much has been improved, I don't know. If it was him before the 20 Chaos period, I would have a 10% certainty to win against him. But if there is a big breakthrough in his strength in these 20 chaotic eras, then I have no certainty of victory. Jian Wushuang laughed. There is no certainty to win, then it is said that there is more or less certainty to win. Xie Bozan looked at Jian Wushuang with an interest. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. It is true that the 9 kings may be very strong, but Jian Wushuang also has absolute confidence in his own strength. In the trial ground, the 2 maintained the same realm, and both were 3rd-level dominated levels. In terms of strength, he was definitely stronger than Zhujiawang. On the perception of the laws of the universe, he had the strength to break through the 5th layer of the rule of seas long ago, and later studied the secret of the Zixue. After reaching the 1st realm, he was very close to the 6th layer of the rule of seas. At the same time, he also awakened 2 great talents at the same time, plus the primitive universe given by the law of the universe, that is 3 great talents. And the law of the universe also gave him a powerful willpower. All these things add up. In the same level, looking at the universe, he really doesn't believe that someone can be his opponent. Even if the 9 kings themselves are the ultimate masters, he has no fear at all. Even if Zhu Jiawang has made a great breakthrough in these 20 chaos eras, Zhen Wushuang still has more than 90% confidence and can defeat him positively. Look at your smile, it seems that the winning ticket is in the hands. Supreme Xiebo also laughed. Okay, come with me, don't let them wait too long. They. Zhen Wushuang looked. Hehe, the king of the 9 dragons has long been spreading the message of fighting with you. Now many people in the Palace of Life already know that you and him are on the trial ground today. The battle of 2 perfect lives, it attracts many people naturally. As far as I know, there are many ancient existences in the palace, and they are very concerned about your battle, so you have to perform well in this battle, but don't let the 9 robbers steal the limelight. Bloodwave Supreme laughed. So it is. Zhen Wushuang knew it, and then laughed. Since there are so many people who will pay attention to this battle, I will not let them down. Immediately, Zhen Wushuang went to the trial ground under the personal leadership of Bloodwave Supreme. An ancient Cyan temple stands alone in a corner of the Temple of Life. This blue temple is where the trial ground of the Temple of Life is located. This Cyan temple is not large in appearance, but in fact, the trial space contained in it is vast and vast, let alone dominate. Even the 2 supreme strong men can completely complete the trial space. Let go of your hands and feet. Of course, regardless of whether they are the master or the supreme, they enter the trial ground, and they are only the gods with consciousness. As for their deities, they are still left outside. At this moment, around the blue temple, there were already crowded people. They were standing in the void, their breath was revealed, and they kept discussing in a low voice. Have you heard of that? The sword is unparalleled. In Nirvana, the body of God has skyrocketed to 68,000 miles. The record set is the highest in the history of our life shrine. 60,000 miles into the body, it is said that he has also awakened the talented supernatural powers. The sword is unparalleled indeed. I even dare to say that once he breaks through the supreme realm, he will surely become another pillar of heaven in my Palace of Life. It's just he's still a little too young, and too arrogant, and dare to agree to the king's promised battle, he really can't recognize himself. Sword unparalleled, really reckless. Many people shook their heads while talking, lamenting the high talent of Zhen Wushuang, and expressed their incomprehension and irrationality about the battle between Zhen Wushuang and the king of Zhujie. They don't know much about Zhen Wushuang. They only know that Zhen Wushuang is the perfect life, and the deities in the nirvana of life have skyrocketed to 68,000 miles. They have also awakened the talented supernatural powers, but others don't know. After all, Zhen Wushuang has just reached the depths of the universe and has no reputation in the universe. Chapter 41-23. 2 more arrived today. Admittedly, even if Zhen Wushuang once defeated the ultimate dominator with the 3rd level, it was still in the Jiuyao starfield, and the disaster of the Jiuyao starfield was almost completely destroyed. Naturally, no one knew his specific strength is out. No one even knows how high he feels about the laws of the universe. But the 9 kings are different. These people who have stayed in the Temple of Life for a long time know more about the strength of King Zhoujia. Once upon a time, it was the first genius recognized by the Palace of Life, and at the level of dominance, it also received countless resources and benefits from the Palace of Life. He has also spent dozens of chaos in the ultimate domination. And his strength revealed before the 20 chaos times alone is extremely scary. In these 20 chaos times, he has rarely shot, and his strength and whole cards have already reached the point where no one can see. No one knows how far he has grown in strength in this more than 20 chaos era that has not broken through. I can say that King 9 is the vast universe, the uncrowned king who dominates the realm, first person in the universe. They really can't think of it. They have practiced Zhen Wushuang for more than 300,000 years, and what to use to fight the king of Zhu Cai. Is it because the 2 are in the same state in the trial ground? I still say that because this sword is unparalleled, the power of the will be higher than that of Zhoujien King. Even if this is the case, he is not the opponent of King Zhouzai, right? At this moment, the Supreme Master of Bloodwave led to see countless others and came to the Blue Temple. Jian Wushuang, this temple is where the trial is. The 9 disasters don't seem to have come yet. You are here now, etc. Shuebo Supreme ordered. Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded. Suddenly, Bloodwave Supreme has swept away to avoid beside. With the sword Wushuang coming, there was a commotion in the surrounding void. He is the sword unparalleled. Does it look average? Sure enough, it is only the 3rd grade that dominates the level, and the practice has not been more than 300,000 years. Too young. 300,000 years of cultivation, such achievements can be achieved, which is very bad. Some of the strong men who came to watch the battle laughed. At the same time, in the void on the other side of the Blue Temple, there are still 3 supreme powerful men who have enough breath to crush eternity. Bloodwave, that sword Wushuang is really in the nirvana of life. The body has skyrocketed to 68,000 miles. An old man with white hair and white eyebrows, wearing a black robe and full of decay, asked indifferently. Extreme Gav, this is absolutely true. Bloodwave Extreme was slightly behind the old man, nodding and nodded. That's the case, that's a bit interesting. The old man raised his eyelids, and there were no waves in the muddy eyes, neither salty nor indifferent. This person is the strongest of the 5 chief supremes of the Temple of Life, Gave. The years of his practice have been so long that they cannot be recorded in the Chaos period. The chief supreme leaders, such as Bloodwave and Giant Axe, can only claim to be juniors in front of him. I can say that the status of the entire Palace of Life is second only to that mysterious Palace Master. This is not the most critical thing. The key is that the King of Zhoulong was the life temple he brought from a remote astral world. I did not expect that the battle between Zhujiawang and Jian Wushuang led him all out. Blood, you shouldn't let sword warriors fight. The King of 9 Calamities has practiced dozens of chaos disciplines, and sword warriors has not cultivated enough for 300,000 years. The information is too bad. If this sword warrior loses, maybe it will cause some blows to him, which is not conducive to his future development. The Great Axe in the 3 supreme figures frowned and said, Big Axe, you are too underestimated of this little guy. When I just picked him up, he was full of confidence in this battle. Bloodwave Supreme smiled mysteriously. It's a good thing to have confidence, but blind self-confidence is arrogance. Gav said supremely, although I am very optimistic about this little guy, I think that if he grows up in the future, he should be stronger than the King of 9 Calamities, but that is also after he grew up, but now. I really do know. I have only cultivated for 300,000 years. How to defeat the King of 9 Calamities. Extreme Axe shook his head. Haha, let's wait and see. Shuebo smiled brightly and didn't say more. Time passed slowly. Not long after Jian Wushuang arrived at the trial ground, a black-haired, indifferent white-haired boy Zhu Jiwang also came to the trial ground. Jian Wushuang, you came quite fast. King Zhoujia looked at Jian Wushuang, with a playful smile on his face. It's too slow for you to come. Jian Wushuang gave a cold glance at King Zhoujia. You should already know the rules of the trial ground. You and I are just consciously entering into it. The trial ground will fight according to our own new body, but considering that you are only the 3rd level master, I will not bully the small. The body I condensed in the trial field will only be the 3rd level to dominate the level. Jian Wushuang nodded. No one was surprised around me. The King of 9 Emperors must be in a low state in the trial ground, which is a certainty and a must. After all, if he went to the trial field with his peak strength, then this match would be completely meaningless. No matter how invincible sword Jian Wushuang is, it is impossible to defeat the opponent who has reached the top of the ultimate domination, and the strength of his magic power is more than 7,000 times that of a perfect practitioner. Only the divine power will not be a grade. The divine power of the 9 Calamity Kings is barely comparable to the supreme. Are you and I going directly to the trial ground? Jian Wushuang looked at the King of Zhoujia. No rush, before we enter the trial ground, let's discuss it. King Zhoujia suddenly laughed. What to discuss? Jian Wushuang asked. You and I are perfect lives, and this exchange has attracted so many strong people in the palace to come and watch. If this battle ends so simple, it would be too boring. Let's add some highlights. Zhou Wang laughed. Colorful head. Jian Wushuang frowned, but his heart laughed. The 9 kings of the calamity are really dead. I want to suppress him through this battle, so that he is too high in his status, and now he still wants to win. He wants to earn more from himself. What color head do you want? Jian Wushuang asked. I heard that when you first arrived in the palace, you met the Great Axe Supreme, and the Great Axe Supreme gave you a godfruit of the rule of Chinese goods. King Zhoujia smiled lightly. Qi Jian was eyes flickered. Those who watched the battle around were surprised. Standing aside in the void, among the 3 towering figures standing there, the Great Axe's complexion was slightly gloomy. Chapter 41-24. These 9 calamities are really a good abacus. In the void, there was an anger flash on the face of the Great Axe Supreme, the goddess of Zhongping rule, but he gave Jian Wushuang a meeting ceremony with his own hands, and these 9 calamities dared to hit his idea to the meeting ceremony. The next moment, he was about to speak out, and personally refused this request for Jian Wushuang, and saw the Supreme Gav standing next to him, glanced at him, and said indifferently, "Big Axe, this trial is among their juniors. What would it look like if you stepped in?" When the giant axe heard that his pupils shrank, he remembered that the King of 9 Calamities was the next to the Supreme Lord Gap, who had personally led him back that year. Although King 9 Calamities did not break through the Supreme Realm in recent years, all high-level palaces of life, including Gafuzun, were disappointed in him, but if they were to forcibly intervene in this trial at this moment, it would be easy to get off the mark. The giant axe groaned for a moment, preparing to speak, but saw the blood wave next to him shaking his head slightly. Why not? He gave a sigh and stopped speaking. Instead he looked at Jian Wushuang outside the trial ground, so he had to hope in Jian Wushuang, and he would not agree to the request of King Zhoujia. Xi'an Temple, outside the trial ground. Jian Wushuang, this trial and study, if you lose, you will give me the Chinese rule of God that the axe is supreme to you. How? The King of 9 Kings looked at Jian Wushuang with his hands, and his skin was smiling. Said with a smile. As soon as the words came to an end, there was a commotion among the crowds watching the scene. The fierce king of the 9th calamity, even when he said it, he wanted the Axe Supreme to give Jian Wushuang the magical rule of Zhongping. Well, the King of 9 Calamities has long coveted the fruit of that Chinese rule. Ha ha ha, I see, this trial is false. Suppressing the sword is unparalleled, and it is true to get the god fruit. Look at Jian Wushuang now, will you agree? He stared at each other and fell on Jian Wushuang, waiting for his decision. Jian Jianhua's eyes narrowed, and he didn't rush to promise the King of Zhoujia, but asked instead, if King of Zhoujia lose, what is Kai Tu? I lost. Wang Zhoujia laughed, then turned over with his right hand, took out 2 red fruits, and said, if I lose, not only the 2 good quality rules god fruits for you, I will additionally give you 200,000 source stones. Counting it, it's worth more than your god of goods. How about it? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Indeed, if the value is single, the 2 sublime rules of the fruit, plus the 200,000 source stone, are indeed similar to his middle-class rule of fruit. Next moment. I promised. Jian Wushuang said lightly. Ha 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 ha, sword unparalleled, you really do not let this seat down. Zhu Wang heard the words, and suddenly sent a vague joy in his eyes. Among the crowd watching the battle, with the words I promised by Jian Wushuang, there was an uproar. Stupid. The intention of Zhu Wang to deceive his of goodness is already so obvious that Wu Shou shouldn't see it, but he knows this and even promised to fight? Can he really think he will win? Over the 9 kings? This sword is unparalleled, maybe the talent is really good, but after all, the practice is too short and too proud. The spectators in the crowd shook their heads, sighed, or mocked. And in the mysterious void where the 3 supremes stand arrogant. Seeing Jian Wushuang agreeing to the King of the 9th Calamity, the axe of the Great Axe snorted, and said secretly in his heart, little guy, if you lose that of goodness rule, see where you cry. Jian Wushuang, let's get started. The king of Zhujiajia seemed to be afraid of the sword Wushu repenting. After that, he immediately pressed his palm on a statue outside the trial ground. This statue is the opening channel of the trial ground. It is a precious anomaly. It can perfectly copy all the divine power and will power of the trial object. It is condensed into a body in the trial ground, ensuring that the two can be in the trial ground. The same realm it is good. Wu Jian Wushuang nodded and did not hesitate to press his hand on the statue in front of him. There was a flash of golden light, and I saw a crack in the void of this blue temple. Next moment, the respective consciousnesses of Wu Jian Wushuang and Zhu Jiewang blasted towards this crack. In the puppet trial ground, there is a starry sky. I saw that the body of King Zhoulong was first condensed, and he stepped in the void, and his spirit was surging. Subsequently, Jian Wushuang's deity was also condensed, and a sharp sword surged into the sky. Jian Wushuang, I'm the third dominating level with you now, don't say I bully you. Zhu Jiewang smiled coldly and didn't want to say more. The strength of the divine power in the body suddenly broke out, and he took the first shot at Jian Wushuang. Come. This palm is composed of divine power, and the immense divine power almost collapses the void. Want to test the strength of my divine power? Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently, followed and pointed into a sword, cut out a sword mang composed of divine power, and shot directly at the palm of Zhu Jiewang. Rumble. There was a burst of loud noise. The two kings of Zhu Jie and Jian Wushuang did not give out their full strength at the beginning, neither sword Wushuang did not take out their own magic sword, just referring to the strength into a sword, it is obviously to compete in the strength of divine power. In terms of divine strength, both of them are perfect lives, and the innate advantages of development are at least 70%. This collision, the horror of mighty power burst out instantly, and immediately followed the majestic power of King Nine Calamity, like the rising and falling tide of the sea, sweeping toward the sword in comparable waves. The sword Wushuang, facing this surging endless divine power, is like a flat boat in the sea of anger. No matter how divine the power of the Nine Calamity King, although he looks thrilling, he is not move. Sword unparalleled, can you only defend? The King of Nine Emperors laughed. The violent divine power was like a violent storm, and he slammed against the sword Wushuang once and again. With each slap, the intensity of the divine power was even greater than the previous one. King of Calamity, if you want to test my strength, then I will fulfill you. Yang Jian Wushuang heard the words and wasted no time. His eyes flashed, and he no longer hesitated. The majestic power of his body also began to explode. With a big wave of his sword, Wu Shuang, a shocking sword rainbow, chopped down towards the king of Zhujie. 8,000 times the strength of the divine power suddenly broke out. This sword was split and directly defeated all the offensives of King Zhojia, and even the figure of King Zhojia could not help but step back a few steps. After this retreat, the gap in the strength of the divine power of the two sides was immediately reflected. Okay. The King Zhojia regained his body shape, but his face was sinking, and there was a shock in his eyes. This boy's strength has reached 8,000 times, even stronger than me. Chapter 41-25. The first is more. While Jian Wushuang and Zhu Jiewang confronted each other, a huge turquoise black mirror appeared on the blue temple outside the trial ground, and the convex mirror surface put the Zhu Jiewang and Jian Wushuang in the trial area. The pictures of the competition were all taken care of. The power of these two people is so scary. After all, they are perfect lives. King Zhojia has developed more than 70% of his innate advantages long ago. The strength of the divine power is estimated to be about 7,500 times that of ordinary practitioners. The King of Robbers is stronger. This sword is unparalleled in strength. I am afraid that it is 8,000 times that of an ordinary practitioner. The strength of the divine power is 8,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. It is really terrible. Looking at the battle pictures uploaded by Shuangguang Mirror, countless people secretly marveled, but also not reached the point of dazzling. After all, Jian Wushuang can awaken talents. The development of his innate advantages must also be more than 70%, and the minimum is 70%. Now he has developed 80%, and it has an outbreak of 8,000 times the strength of the divine power. In the empty space around the puppet, 3 people, the Supreme, the Great Bloodwave, and the Great Axe, stood. Although there are still other Supremes present, those Supremes are not eligible to be tied with these 3. The strength of this sword's unparalleled magic power is not weak. Gafu Supreme said indifferently. The Bloodwave Supreme next to the cricket smiled secretly. He knows that the sword has a double bottom, but that is 13,500 times the strength of the divine power, and more than 7,500 times the strength of the divine power. What did the sword do before it was double-sided? Even if Jian Wushuang only uses 8,000 times the magic power of ordinary practitioners, it is enough to crush the king of Zhoujia. Seeing this, he also nodded, but said quietly, although the strength of the divine power is higher than that of Zhou Jianwang, in other respects, it may not be comparable to Zhou Jianwang. It is too early to be happy. Let's watch then. Xie Buoxuan laughed heartily. Among the 3, the eyes of the Supreme and the Great Axe have some special looks in their eyes, except that the Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang expressionlessly from the beginning to the end, and there were no emotions in the turbid eyes. The fluctuations did not see what he was thinking. Inside the trial ground. The battle continues. My own innate advantage has been developed to 80%, which is equivalent to 8,000 times the strength of the ordinary practitioners. The sword is unparalleled. If I only say that in terms of the strength of the gods, I am really inferior to you. The king of Zhoujia smiled, not because of the strength of his own gods. The sword is unparalleled, and there is a change in mood. You know, in his prediction, Jian Wushuang's divine power is at least equivalent to him, but now it is only slightly stronger than him, and he can accept it. He admits that he is not as good as Jian Wushuang in terms of divine strength, which is nothing to him. After all, in the universe, the strength of divine power is not everything, especially Jian Wushuang's divine power is not much stronger than him. Under the condition that the difference in divine strength is not too big, the King of 9 Calamities can completely rely on the absolute learning, rely on various techniques to fill these gaps, and defeat Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I heard, you feel a bit of the law of the universe. King Zhoujia looked at Jian Wushuang. What is it? The sword was indifferent. It's a coincidence that I also realized some of the laws of the universe. I just don't know. Who will be more aware of the laws of the universe? Zhoujia Wang smiled lightly, and followed the steps, and his body suddenly looked like a shell the laser shot out. His hands quickly crossed his seal, and appeared in the sky above Jian Wushuang instantly, suppressing down towards Jian Wushuang. The speed of the 9 kings is so fast that the law of the universe between the palms of the hands is extremely strong and heart-wrenching. The first calamity, the seal of great destruction. The king of 9 calamities whispered. Rumble. The horrible power condensed on Jian Wushuang's head instantly. This mighty power directly formed a huge sky-shaped handprint, which was crushed down by the mighty and merciless. This huge handprint is not only powerful, but the most important is the power of the cosmic law contained in the handprint. The power of this cosmic law is extremely strong. Jian Wushuang also realized the laws of the universe, and his ability to sense the laws of the universe was extremely strong. The moment he saw the 9 kings launching his huge palm print, he had already roughly judged the 9 kings of the universe level of perception. Informationally, it is said that these 9 kings' perceptions of the laws of the universe can already penetrate the 4th layer of the Sea of Laws. The 5th floor is not far away. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and nodded secretly. One master, the perception of the laws of the universe reaches the extreme level of the 4th level of the Law Sea, which is close to the 5th level of the Law Sea. This is already very bad. Based on these cosmic laws alone, Juju is enough to look down on the universe. No wonder he has such great confidence that he can definitely defeat Jian Wushuang. There are also many strong men in the Palace of Life. They also believe that King Zhoujia is definitely better than Jian Wushuang. Even if he maintains the same state, King Zhoujia is even stronger, because King Zhoujia's understanding of the laws of the universe is too high. Looking back at Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang himself said that he felt a trace of the law of the universe, most people think that he really just realized a trace of it, and it is already very amazing to be able to step into the threshold of the law of the universe. After all, Jian Wushuang's practice time is too short, only about 300,000 years. In such a short period of time, he is only the third-level master, and where can he get a sense of the laws of the universe? But it's clear that everyone is contemptuous, including the king of 9 calamities. Wu Jianshou drew his sword out of the sheath in an instant, and a smile swayed from the corner of his mouth. Break it open. Bland's words fell down the sword of Wu, crying Excalibur on the hands without sword. Time was covered by the violent laws of the universe. Howl. A sword mang was sung out by the sword unparalleled, seemingly a random sword, under the blessing of the law of the universe, but this sword with a sharp breath of incomparable horror, was instantly chopped over the huge crushed down above the palm print. The two collided, and the two cosmic laws were intertwined. I saw Jian Wushuang, a sword that was so radiant, and so many swords were soaring. It was very easy to break the King of 9 Calamities' great destruction seal. This sword, although Jian Wushuang did not perform too strong a peerless, but under the blessing of the laws of the universe, it is still much more powerful and subtle than the King of the great destruction of 9 calamities. The crushing of this sword is easier than the crushing of the magic power of Zhu Jiawang by Jian Wushuang. Strong and weak, you can see the level at a glance. Chapter 41-26. Second more. How can it? King Zhoujia collapsed, looking at Jian Wushuang in amazement. He had previously competed with Jian Wushuang's divine strength. He was not Jian Wushuang's opponent. He had nothing to say. After all, his mental strength was well prepared. But now, I have no reservations. I tried my best to use the power of the law of the universe, and I was still using one of my tricks to destroy the seal of seal, but it was directly defeated by his understatement. Zhu Jiawang was shocked. The law of the universe, the law of the universe. This boy, his perception of the laws of the universe is very high. Wang Zhujiawang stared at Jian Wushuang. At the moment of the fight, he felt that the sword skill of Jian Wushuang was actually not very strong. At least it was much worse than the mark of destruction he had cast, but it collided, but his mark of destruction was directly defeated. He created all this, not only because the sword Wushan's divine power was stronger than him. The most important thing was that the law of the universe in which swordsmanship was incorporated was too deep. In other words, Jian Wushuang's perception of the laws of the universe is even higher than him, and still much higher. But why is this happening? In the competition of divine strength, he can still accept the loss. After all, this is a congenital condition. He could compete against the law of the universe. Why did he lose? Why would you lose? This is his enlightenment for dozens of chaos times. The sword Wushuang in front of me was only practiced for more than 300,000 years. He was outside the Blue Temple. How can it be? This sword is unparalleled. Even one sword defeated the seal of destruction that Zhu Jiawang exerted with all his strength. King Zhu Jie, but the power of the law of the universe has been fully urged. Can it be said that this sword Wushuang's perception of the laws of the universe is higher than that of King Zhoujia? It's definitely higher than King Zhouzai, no accident. This sword Wushuang should already be able to cross the 5th floor of the Law Sea. As for whether it can cross the 6th floor, then I don't know. Numerous people looked at the picture from the mysterious light realm and marveled at it. One has practiced dozens of chaos disciplines, while the other has only practiced more than 300,000 years, and both are extremely talented. Can it turn out that the genius who has practiced for more than 300,000 years is higher in the perception of the laws of the universe than the genius who has practiced dozens of chaos ages? The key is, how did he understand the laws of the universe to such an extent in just over 300,000 years? Everyone is full of doubts and puzzles. They didn't understand how Jian Wushuang achieved the level of understanding of the laws of the universe in such a short period of time. But in fact, they all understood it wrong. Most of them think that Jian Wushuang is the rule of the universe that is understood at the level of domination, but in fact Jian Wushuang has realized a little of the law of the universe during the rule of the rule. It is a super genius that is rare in the vast universe. This kind of super genius, in terms of rareness, is not even worse than perfect life. The master level of the rules can comprehend a rule of the universe. After mastering, the speed of comprehension is far faster than others, and the most important thing is that Jian Wushuang himself has gained great opportunities. He not only seized a third-level astral plane, he controlled the heavenly will of that astral realm, and was always affected by the will of that day. It is much easier to understand than other people. At the beginning of the crisis in the divine realm, he also swallowed a treasure of the Ling Ling. In the state of epiphany, he received the guidance of the Lord Lingyun. That was the guidance of a full 100 years. In that 100 years, the sword Wushuang's gains are so great that it makes it much easier for him to comprehend the laws of the universe. Over the years, his awareness of the laws of the universe has continued to improve. When he first went to the Sea of Laws, he had already crossed the 4th floor, and in fact, he already had the ability to cross the 5th floor. Intentionally obstruct it. Later, Lord Xiao Xiao got the purple blood secret code given by Lord Xiao Xiao. The perfect combination of the use of the laws of the universe and kendo can be said to be increasing day by day, and it is increasing every day. It has already reached an incomparable horror. Levels. 100,000 years ago, when Jian Wushuang reached the first realm of Zixu's secret code, he could easily cross the 5th layer of the Sea of Laws. As of now, he still has a lot of progress on the laws of the universe, the secret code is 2nd, and he has begun to enlighten. Even today, even Jian Wushuang is not very clear. If he understands the laws of the universe, what level can he reach in the Sea of Laws? Can he pass through the 6th floor? He didn't know. But what is certain is that his perception of the laws of the universe is much higher than the 9 kings. King of 9 calamities, your divine power is not as strong as mine, and in the perception of the laws of the universe, you are far worse than me. Jian Wushuang chuckled. Pride. The king of Ju Zhoujia screamed, but his body was shocking and swept up. I saw his eyes cold, with a trace of anger. 2nd calamity, big suppression. King 9 calm raised his hand again. In a moment, a brand new palm print was condensed again, and its power was obviously stronger than the previous seal of destruction. The sword is unparalleled, but it is still light, and the sword is casually smashed, and the palm print is defeated again. After the 2nd palm print was defeated, immediately a 3rd stronger palm print was formed. 3rd calamity, Rhubarb Kuan Yin. 4th calamity, Big Sky Seal. 5th calamity. I yelled in the trial ground, and in the trial ground, there were constantly new towering palm prints condensing, and one line was stronger than the other, and the continuous swords were crushed and bombarded. And with this palm print crushed out, the breath of the 9 kings of the calamity is also rising with it. Okay. Wu Jian's eyes were a little stunned, he could feel these palm prints displayed by the king of 9 calamities, and the pressure on him continued to increase. If he can easily handle the 1st and 2nd palm prints, then the 3rd and 4th palm prints will not make him so light. Moreover, this palm print power is still improving. Is this the strongest masterpiece of Zhu Jiawang's fame? Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. In the information that Supreme Master Xingbo gave him about King Zhoulong, he mentioned the strongest mastery created by King Zhoulong. This is the strongest terrible science, and its name is Zhu Jie. Or the title of King Zhoujia is actually based on his abilities. 9 disasters represent the 9 heavenly palm prints. These 9 palm prints are constantly gaining momentum and their power is constantly improving. In addition, the power of the 9 rules of the universe that have been realized by the 9 robbers has also been applied to the peerless studies, making these 9 palm prints even more terrible. Once upon a time, King 9 Calamities used this set of unparalleled skills to confront the Supreme Strong. Chapter 41-27. 3 more arrived today. Outside the trial ground. The king of the 9th calamity shows off his fame. I heard that there are 9 types of this mastery, and the more powerful and horrible he is, the more he has carried the Supreme Master with this mastery. He even praised him for his mastery. However, the sword unmatched with him now, not only the strength of the divine power is above him, but even the perception of the laws of the universe is higher than him. Just do not know if he can perform this feat. Can he win it? Look, I'm looking forward to this battle now. The strong men who watched the battle all talked. Before Jian Wushuang fought against King Zhujie, basically no one was optimistic about Jian Wushuang, and they all believed that Jian Wushuang would be defeated. But until now, Jian Wushuang has shown a stronger strength in the trial ground than Zhu Jiewang, and even after the perception of the laws of the universe is higher than Zhu Jiewang, these people dare not think that this sword is unmatched. Definitely lost, but gradually a little more suspense. Banging. As mighty as prison, flooded the entire trial space. Those horrifying palm prints, powerful and powerful, brought increasing pressure on Jian Wushuang. Of course, these pressures have always been within the range of Jian Wushuang. In a blink of an eye, the 9-style palm print, the 9-jailed king has already performed the first 8 styles. And this 8-style palm print, the first 7 styles, the sword Wushuang are all able to resist the Wu Chong divine sword with ease. Only the 8th style just now, although the sword Wushuang resisted, but the body was slightly lowered by the bombardment. It looks a bit embarrassing. However, the 9th palm print of King Zhoujia has begun to take shape. This palm print, under the continuous accumulation of the first 8 types of palm prints, the power has reached the extreme. At the moment of molding, even Jian Wu's pupils could not help shrinking. This palm feels several times stronger than the 8th palm just now. If he only talks about the perception of Tao, he may already be able to surpass him. Jian Wushuang secretly said. Jian Wushuang is in Kendo, and his accomplishments are extremely high. The first stage of the Kendo universe's origins has been completed, and with the continuous progress in these years, it is estimated that it is relatively strong in the ultimate domination. However, these 9 kings have stayed at the level of ultimate for dozens of times of chaos. Such a long period of time has not only allowed him to reach a very high level of awareness of the laws of the universe, but he can even match his understanding of Tao. General Supreme. The famous 9th masterpiece he created, even if the final 9th palm, has not reached the level of extreme extinction, it is estimated that the difference is not too much. But the more so, the light in the sword's eyes grew brighter. That's a bit interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled, and there was a hint of excitement on his face. Yeah, just let your palm to test my progress in Kendo over the years. In the space of the trial ground, Jian Wushuang looked up at the huge palm print that was slowly rolling down and felt the amazing power contained in that palm print, but on his body was the power of strong cosmic laws, accompanied by a large amount of Kendo universe. The origins are swept up in madness, and these are obviously 2 very different forces. At this moment, they are perfectly combined. The law of the universe and the origin of the Kendo universe are perfectly combined. Jian Wushuang's achievements in the purple blood secret, at this moment, is perfectly reflected, and his 5 knuckle fingers, at this moment, also firmly hold the hilt of the Wu weeping sword. Toward the 9 the king of calamity is cut down. The sword came out, the world was shocked. It is impossible to use any words to describe the sword that swords warriors wielded. This sword, spreading thousands of feet, is like the Shenzhen that tore the night, splitting the entire starry sky in half, shining like the sun, and hanging like a river in the sky. This sword was realized by Jian Wushuang in the Kendo for nearly 300,000 years, and it was his strongest sword after the baptism of Nirvana pool in his life. This sword combines the strength of his 8,000 times the power of God, the fusion of his first priority after breaking through the purple blood book, the perfect combination of the application of the laws of the universe and the origin of Kendo universe. This sword has no name, but it is the strongest sword in addition to the gifted swordsman. At this moment, everyone outside the temple raised their heads, as if looking at the starry sky in the trial field as if in a horror. The path that penetrated the heavens and the earth, smashed the sun and the moon, and opened their mouths gradually. The stunning sword, without any hindrance, collided directly with the strongest palm of the 9 thug kings. The roar of terror sounded, and the entire proving ground was instantly caught in a terrifying storm of divine power. The 2 terrible mites rushed madly and shattered everything. Halfway, the dust settled. Jian Wushuang and Zhu Jiewang are still standing face to face in the middle of the testing ground. Jian Wushuang has a strange smile on his face, but Zhu Jiewang's eyes are shocking at the moment. You actually blocked my 9th palm? The king of 9 robbers looked at Jian Wushuang unbelievably. The palm of your hand is very strong, purely on the level of extinction. My sword should not be as good as you, but my perception of the laws of the universe, and even the use of the origin of the Kendo universe, is much higher than you, so this time collision, you and I will fight with each other. Jian Wushuang straight. That's right, the final result was that Jian Wushuang was undefeated, and the King of Nine Kings did not win. The two attacked and collided, and eventually they were annihilated, and they were quite equal. For this result, Jian Wushuang was able to accept it, but for King Zhoujia, it was not acceptable. He only practiced for more than 300,000 years, but his perception of the laws of the universe was so much higher than mine. Even if I became famous and excelled in school, he could rely on swordsmanship to confront him. King Zhoujia clenched his hands. My heart is shaking. King of the Nine Calamities. And Jian Wushuang looked at him again. You lowered your attitude and came to fight with me, so that you could come up with 2 inferior rules God fruit and 200,000 source stones to poison my middle rule God fruit. From the beginning to the end you are so confident, but if your strength is only to the extent that you are now exposed, it would be too disappointing to me. Disappointing you? The King of Nine Kings looked completely ugly, and his eyes were full of anger. Okay, good, sword unparalleled, you have angered me completely. I originally wanted to fight with a junior who practiced for 300,000 years. I do want to he uses talent, but now. The King of Juzai's eyes suddenly looked cold, but then he suddenly raised his head, and his blood-stained pupil stared at Jian Wushuang. Next moment. Boom. Suddenly, with the King of Nine Calamities as the center, a violent blast of breath exploded, and his entire body began to swell quickly. Chapter 41-28. The first is more. The terrifying breath swept away, directly rolling up a void storm, and numerous winds roared and roared. At the center of the storm, the Nine Calamity King's skin became dark, and a crisscross pattern emerged from his body. Jian Wushuang, you are a third-level master who hasn't practiced for 300,000 years. You can force me to show my talents. I can be proud of it. King Zhoujia took his hands and looked at Jian Wushuang indifferently. Within a circle of 100 feet around him, a circular storm circle was automatically formed, and a violent storm of voids swept across the square and roared. At the same time, a mysterious and profound law breath came out from those mysterious patterns on his body. At this moment, he has reached the peak of his momentum. King of the Ninth Calamity, the talent has been used. Zhu Kaiwang's talented magical power Devil's Evolution is enough to make his power suddenly multiply several times or even nearly 10 times. It is definitely a magical power that has greatly improved its combat power. This sword Wushuang also awakened his talents before his magical powers. It's supernatural. I do know if I can stop the Nine Kings. I can't see it, but I was able to force the King of Jozai to show his talents. If this sword is unparalleled, it will be amazing. Many of the powerhouses in the trial battle have been discussing. In the space of the testing ground, watching the dramatic changes in the Zhu Jie King's body, and the moment of soaring breath, Jian Wushuang's eyebrows could not help raising. This is the Zhu Jie's awakening talent. It looks good. The sword is unparalleled, so far. Call out. As soon as the words fell, the King of Zhu Jie suddenly flashed in his eyes, his body turned into a black stream, dragging a series of afterimages in the starry sky, rushing towards the sword unparalleled. This speed at least several times faster. Jian Wushuang saw this, his pupils shrank for a moment, and a little shock appeared on his face. With a long laugh, King Zhoujia quickly sealed his hands in the void. Mark of destruction. Suddenly, a horrible power radiated from the King of Zhoulong. Countless stormy breaths were evacuated from the void, then blasted from all directions, and finally condensed together, constantly twisting, forming a towering giant. This giant hand is thousands of feet wide and extremely magnificent. A devastating atmosphere spreads, which is appalling. The Great Destruction Seal is only the first master of the 9 styles, which was the first palm of the 9 styles. This palm was previously displayed and defeated by Jian Wushuang's understatement. But now, the same palm, the power of which has increased by almost 10 times directly. This palm shot gave Jian Wushuang the feeling that he was almost approaching the 9th palm print. It seems that I have to be a little more serious. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, followed by a sudden look up, watching the huge fingerprints that were almost as strong as to be degraded under the blessing of talent and supernatural power. Next, the invincible, getting closer and closer to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's black hair and black robes were blown wildly by wild winds. Outside the trial ground, one after another, looking at Jian Wushuang through the black mirror. Everyone was watching how Jian Wushuang dealt with the king of the 9th calamity after casting his talents. Suddenly, the sword is unparalleled. Very casual sword. It's like a beginner who has just used a sword, practicing simple chopping. Almost everyone outside the trial ground can see that Jian Wushuang is a very common sword, at least it is indeed in the form of moves. At most, it is the origin of the Kendo universe, which is extremely rich in the laws of the universe. Such a sword, if faced with the 9 calamities king who has never shown his talents, may still be able to resist, but now the 9 calamity kings who have talents have been cast, his combat power has increased nearly tenfold, and the destruction of the Indian might scared nearly 10 times. Is this kind of attack such a simple and arbitrary sword that Jian Wushuang can resist? This sword is unparalleled. What's going on? Don't you know your enemy, but have you given up? It shouldn't be, at least he should also use his talents and try to compete. Many of the powerhouses in the trial battlefield showed their doubts. However, the next moment, the moment when Jian Wushuang's extremely random sword collided with the huge palm print of the 9 kings of calamity, the expressions on everyone's faces instantly stagnated. I saw that the huge palm with a width of 1,000 feet was ruthlessly cut by the sword light. The entire palm collapsed instantly, and the endless divine power was scattered in all directions. Even the sword light power that the sword Wushuang had cast was not yet completely exhausted, still continued to beheaded to the king of 9 calamities. The Zhujiawang was taken aback, and he quickly shot again before resisting this Wei of Zhenguang, but his figure was shocked a few steps away. Standing still again, Zhu Jiawang's head was a little dazed. Not only him, but many of the powerhouses in the proving grounds were also shocked. How could this be? The king of 9 calamities has already performed his talents. His strength has skyrocketed nearly tenfold. How can this sword Wushuang play such an understatement? It's so easy to downplay the frontal defeat. What the is going on? I didn't understand. I thought this sword Wushuang had given up. Most of the people who watched the battle outside the trial ground were inexplicable. They didn't know what had just happened. Why the sword skills that Jian Wushuang could cast at will can easily defeat the king of Zhujie. And in that solitary void, the looks of the Supreme, and the Great Axe all became somewhat dignified. Maybe others can't see what happened in that scene, but all 3 of them are top and supreme, but they can be seen at a glance. The power of will. The Great Axe said, "This sword is unparalleled, and it has such a mighty will power." The king of 9 emperors showed his talents and soared nearly tenfold. As a result, the unstoppable skills he was able to defeat were still defeated by him at will. The will power he possessed was very terrible. The improvement of sword power is definitely more than 10 times. Supreme of Bloodwave is a look of astonishment. His power of will. Gafu Supreme stared slightly. If this seat is correct, this power of will should be granted by the laws of the universe. That is to say, this little guy once had the special opportunity was recognized by the laws of the universe, and a will power was given to them by the laws of the universe. Given by the laws of the universe in person, Bloodwave Supreme eyes brightened, and a smile appeared on his face. This boy has given us a big surprise. Chapter 41-29. Second more. It was a big surprise indeed. The law of the universe is supreme, as strong as the supreme, or even the top one. The law of the universe is only used to comprehend and use it, so as to enhance its own strength. It is too difficult to get the recognition of the laws of the universe. In the universe, under normal circumstances, only by obtaining such an inferior opportunity, can it be recognized by the laws of the universe, the laws of the universe can give willpower, and the willpower given by the laws of the universe is also powerful. Weak. Like Jian Wushuang now, the willpower that directly increases his strength by 10 times is undoubtedly very high. With such a strong willpower, it can completely bridge the gap brought about by Zhu Jiwang's talents. Even Zhu Jiwang's talents have improved his power by less than 10 times. The willpower of Jian Wushuang, so Jian Wushuang was able to defeat his mastery with a single sword, and it was able to explain it. Giant Axe smiled supremely. Even the magical powers of the show are still being crushed. This time, King Jotei is about to plant a big heel. Bloodwave Supreme laughed, and while he was speaking, he looked at the Gafu Supreme beside him. The King of 9 Calamities was personally introduced into the Palace of Life by the Lord of Gave, and the King of 9 Calvaries naturally paid more attention to the King of 9 Calories. Follow me. It's a little bit earlier to say this now. Gafu Supreme glanced at him indifferently and replied indifferently. Huh. Bloodwave Supreme heard the words for a moment, then wondered, Gaifu Supreme, is there anything wrong? Supreme Gav did not answer him, but had turned his head again, looking at the sword unparalleled in the Shuangguang mirror. Deep in his old murky eyes, there was a faint flash of light. Recognized by the laws of the universe, and even given such a powerful willpower, this little guy named Jian Wushuang is indeed very good, but if that's the case, I'm afraid it's not enough. Talk to yourself. As the person who brought Zhu Jie back personally, he paid most attention to King Zhu Jie. Even though King Zhu Jie has been unable to break through and become the supreme over the years, before the status of the Palace of Life was greatly inferior, Supreme Governance was slightly disappointed with him. But disappointment turned to disappointment, and Gavra Supreme was still silently paying attention to the growth of the King of 9 Calamities. In the nearly 20 Chaos eras, the King of 9 Kings has rarely shot, and no one knows where his strength has reached, but Supreme Gap is the exception. Supreme Gav knows the King of the 9 Calamities the most. To be precise, every progress of the King of the 9 Calamities will be falsely accused of the Supreme Gav, so Supreme Gav knows that in the trial field, even the talented supernatural power has been Zhou Zhao Wang, who was still crushed by the sword unparalleled, has a stronger whole card. It depends on Zhu Jie, and he is willing to reveal his card. Gav muttered, and then his expression returned to calm again, and he stopped speaking. Hearing the words, Supreme Bloodwave and Supreme Axe, the two looked at each other face to face, and a hint of shock appeared in their hearts. King Zhoujia, there is a stronger whole card. In the trial ground, countless stars flickered, forming a bright sea of stars. The King of 9 Calamities has gradually calmed down from the previous shock and incredible. His eyes were cold, and he stared at Jian Wushuang tightly, and said lowly, Jian Wushuang, there should be a special power in the sword you just had. What is this power? It is willpower. Jian Wushuang did not intend to conceal it, because he knew that among the strong men of the life shrine in appearance warfare, there must be someone who could see this willpower. This power of will was recognized by the law of the universe under the coincidence of chance, and was given by the law of the universe himself. He can directly increase my attack power by 10 times. Jian Wushuang said directly. Is that so? The King of 9 Calamities became clear. No wonder, I cast my talents and will still be crushed by your swordsmanship. But following Zhu Jiawang, he immediately laughed again. Jian Wushuang, I have to admit that you are a real genius, and you are also the most antithetical one among all the geniuses I have ever seen, even me. When the 3 levels dominate the realm, they are far from you, let alone you have only cultivated for 300,000 years. King Zhoujia said words of admiration, but his eyes became colder. But it's a pity that you met me. If I give you some more time, it won't take long. It is estimated that millions of years, tens of millions of years, you will fight with me again, in the same realm. Maybe I might really lose in your hands, but now well. Zhu Jiawang smiled coldly. Boom. Suddenly, an unprecedentedly powerful breath, centered on King 9 Calamities, has skyrocketed. This breath is completely different from the previous breath of King Jiolong. It is full of a sense of Xuanao Avenue. Once this breath comes out, the void of the trial site is like it can't bear it, and it emits a kakaka sound similar to glass breaking. Immediately, Jian Wushuang saw that the space around the trial ground and the scene began to change. centered on King Jojia, a huge and magnificent force directly extended. This power is enough to suffocate and tremble any master. This kind of power does not even feel like a master practitioner can possess it. What is it? Jian Wushuang's face changed immediately. This power gave him a very familiar feeling. This transcendent, completely overriding the power of the master, he has experienced in the Black Hawk Supreme, experienced in the Bloodwave Supreme, and experienced in the Great Axe Supreme. That's extreme power. How can it be? Jian Wushuang's eyes widened, staring at the 9 calamities in front of him. The surrounding trial space has completely changed its appearance into a unique world. This world is hazy, but it has the sky, the earth, and the mountains and mountains. The whole is the structure of a world. But the key is the power of the world of this architecture should not be the power that the master can master. This is. When Jian Wushuang looked at the surrounding structure, he had guessed at the bottom of his heart, but his face became hard to look. Outside of the trial ground, among those who watched the battle, those with strong strength eventually dominated, as well as the few supreme strong people. Seeing the changes in the trial ground, they all boiled up. I miss the kingdom of God. It's a thought of the kingdom of God. Even supreme, it is only possible to master the kingdom of God if you reach a certain level. The 9 kings of the calamity even exhibited the kingdom of God. Outside the trial ground, all the people who watched the battle were boiling. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.